We're joined from Washington by Michael Whalen, CEO of Heart of America Group, which designs, builds, and operates hotels, restaurants, and commercial real estate in 6 Midwestern states. Mr. Whalen's also on the board of the Jobs Creators Alliance. Mr. Whalen, welcome to Bloomberg's Bottom Line. Pleasure to have you on.
Thanks for having me.
Mr. Whalen, our Zara Burton was just asking Mr. Schoenberger a question. How do you square that ADP number that we got yesterday, 157,000 jobs created, with that very disappointing 18,000 number that we got from the Labor Department today?
Well, I live out there in the real world, and to quote that economic philosopher Gomer Pyle, surprise, 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 because the things that they're doing out there, particularly inhibiting job credit to small and medium-sized business people, is just dampening jobs right and left. And that I had a chance to testify today to Congress on that.
Yes, you did. Yeah. Sir, before we get to that, you employ about 3,000 people in the restaurant and hospitality industry, including construction. What's your view of the job market as an employer?
Well, I have a sickness called being an entrepreneur, so I'm continuing to build things. But what I did is I told the story about an outstanding project that I had, that it should have been bankable, and I had 25 banks turn me down. And that, if they're turning my company down, which is solid, bankers are all over telling me they're scared to death to make loans because the regulators are going to come in and second guess them on Monday morning.
Mr. Whalen, do you believe the current regulatory environment is stifling growth and it's choking off job creation? But as you know, there are some in Congress who say that the lack of regulatory oversight is what got us into this mess in the first place. How do you respond to that?
Well, I think we live in a world of two worlds. We have a Wall Street bank, a banking structure where 6 banks control something like 80% of the assets. And then you have small, medium-sized community banks where a lot of the small guys and medium-sized guys, like I was 30 years ago, started. And basically what we had is a bunch of jumbo jets crash, and now they're decided they're going to regulate everything down to the ultralights. And that's what we've got. They're taking that, we need to get much more regulation on Wall Street, and they're taking it out to Main Street to little banks and killing job growth.
Okay, Mr. Whalen, you're sitting in a meeting with President Obama and some of his members from his business roundtable, and they ask you your thoughts on job creation. What do you tell them?
I say you got a tremendous amount of uncertainty. You know, where are the tax rates going? What is Obamacare going to do in terms of impacting my bottom line? All that uncertainty adds up. But I'd also say you've got to tell the regulators out there in the small and community banks, you can't take the same attitude that you've taken to Wall Street. There's a different mentality, and you've got to ease that credit. 61% of the bankers in this country just recently said they didn't make a loan they would have made to under normal circumstances because they were fearful that the regulators would come in the next day and punish them for it.
Mr. Whalen, what's the situation in your business regarding wages and hours worked?
Well, we never have laid anybody off. And in fact, we're adding people, but we're in an anomaly. We're a strong company, and
well, in this economic environment, I'm sorry to interrupt, but in this economic environment, how did you do that? How were you able not to lay people off?
Well, I've always run my company very, very conservatively and not highly leveraged. And so we hunkered down kind of like a turtle in a shell for about 2 years. But now we're back growing again, adding people. And we're going to add hundreds of jobs. But my point is, if it was that hard for my company, a strong company, to get that kind of financing, I can't imagine what it would have been like 15 or 20 years ago in my position. I would have just been shut down. And that's a shame.
Mr. Whalen, when you said you tried to expand and you were turned down by the banks, what was the reason they gave you?
They kept coming back and saying it's commercial real estate, it's hospitality. The regulators have come in and said it doesn't matter how strong a company that we're looking at, we don't want to see you expand your exposure. And they're throwing up their hands saying, this is a loan we'd make every single day. It's a great loan, but we don't want to have those folks come in and penalize it for us. Yeah. And that's very frustrating.
You did mention earlier that you did testify today on Capitol Hill before the House Subcommittee on Financial Institutions and Consumer Credit. What type of reception did you receive?
Well, I tell you, the congressmen that are out there talking to their community banks, that are talking to their small and medium-sized businesses, are telling the same very story that I am, which is loans that are being paid on time for various reasons are being declared non-performing, even though they're being paid on time. And loans that are good loans aren't being made because of the fear that somebody will come in and second guess them. They're hearing that. Now, on the other hand, people came in on the opposing side and said we've had a financial crisis on Wall Street.
Right.
I agree. But we don't need to put Wall Street's tourniquet on Main Street because we didn't have that kind of bleeding.
Mr. Whalen, we have about a minute left. My colleague Tom Keene posed, as he usually does, a salient question today. What type of structural changes are needed to get this economy humming and get job creation moving along, other than, as you said, removing the shackles of regulatory oversight?
Well, I think we do need to clarify. I'm a sub-S company. I'm one of 3.5 to 4 million sub-S companies where my business income is put on my personal income tax. Are they going to increase my business taxes by changing the Bush tax rates? That's number one. Is EPA going to go ahead with the CO2 emissions? Does that mean every exhaust hood in one of my restaurants gets under EPA control? And we need to clarify Obamacare. I brought experts into my office and said, what does this mean for Heart of America Group? And they've said, Mike, we've gone to seminar after seminar. We really can't tell you. And in that kind of uncertainty, people sit on the sidelines.
Michael Whalen, he's the CEO of Heart of America Group from the great state of Iowa. And he's joining us today from Washington. Mr. Whalen, thanks so much. Appreciate it.